you're talking to your dog. Maybe asking if they want to go for a walk, or telling them about your day, or just saying their name in that voice you only use with them. And then it happens. That slow, deliberate tilt. Head cocked to one side, eyes locked on yours, ears slightly forward. It's one of the most charming things a dog does, one of the most human-looking moments they give us. And most people assume they know why it's happening. They'll tell you the dog is trying to hear you better, adjusting their ears to catch the sound more clearly. It's a reasonable explanation. It makes sense on the surface. But here's the part that doesn't add up. Dogs can hear frequencies we can't even imagine. They can detect a sound from 4 times farther away than we can. Their ears are already engineered for precision. So why would a dog with that kind of auditory power need to tilt their head just to understand you saying, walk? The answer isn't about hearing at all. It's about something much deeper. Something that changes the way you'll see that tilt from this moment forward. Because what looks like a cute quirk is actually a window into how your dog is trying to read you. Let's start with what researchers actually found when they studied this behavior. A team at Eötvös Loránd University in Hungary ran a series of experiments with dogs who had been trained to retrieve specific toys by name. These weren't average pet dogs. These were animals who knew the names of dozens of objects, and they noticed something fascinating. The dogs who were best at learning and remembering words tilted their heads far more often than the dogs who struggled with the task. Not just a little more often, significantly more. The head tilt wasn't random. It wasn't about hearing. It was about processing. Think about what that means. When your dog tilts their head while you're speaking, they're not just listening to sound. They're working to extract meaning from what you're saying. They're trying to match your tone, your facial expression, your body language, and the specific words you're using into one coherent message. It's the same thing you do when you're trying to understand someone in a noisy room. You don't just listen harder. You watch their mouth. You read their face. You piece together context. Your dog is doing a version of that every single time you speak to them. But here's where it gets more interesting. The head tilt doesn't just help them process sound. It helps them see you more clearly. A dog's muzzle blocks part of their vision. Depending on the breed, that obstruction can be significant. When you're standing in front of them, talking, a good portion of your face, especially your mouth, is hidden behind the bridge of their nose. So they tilt. Not to hear you, to see your mouth move, to watch your expression change, to read the full emotional message you're sending. Stanley Korn, a canine psychologist, pointed this out years ago, and it was later reinforced by behavioral observation studies. Dogs with flatter faces, like pugs or French bulldogs, tilt their heads less often than dogs with longer muzzles, like German shepherds or golden retrievers. The dogs who need the visual adjustment do it more. The dogs who already have a clear view do it less. That's not coincidence. Now think about what that actually means in your living room. When you come home and say, "I missed you," and your dog tilts their head, they're not just hearing the words. They're scanning your face for proof. They're looking for the smile, the softness in your eyes, the authenticity behind the sound. They're reading you the way you read other people when you're trying to figure out if someone really means what they're saying. And that changes everything. Because the head tilt isn't a passive response. It's an active attempt at understanding. Your dog is studying you. Most people stop at that explanation. But that only explains part of it. Because there's another layer to this behavior that makes it even more emotionally significant. Dogs don't tilt their heads at every sound. They don't do it when a car drives by, or when the doorbell rings, or when another dog barks in the distance. They do it when you're speaking directly to them, especially when you're using a specific tone. The kind of tone that signals emotional importance. You know the one. The high-pitched, affectionate voice you use when you're praising them. The concerned tone when you're asking if they're okay. The excited question when you're about to do something together. That's when the tilt happens most. And researchers believe that's not random either. Dogs have spent thousands of years evolving alongside humans, and in that time, they've developed an extraordinary ability to read human emotional cues. Not just body language, not just facial expressions, but vocal tone. They've learned that the way we sound tells them what we feel, And when they detect a tone that carries emotional weight, something in their brain signals. This matters. Pay closer attention. The head tilt is their way of doing exactly that. It's a focus response. Think about the last time you tilted your head while listening to someone. You probably did it when the conversation got deeper, when someone was telling you something important, when you wanted them to know you were really hearing them. Your dog is doing the same thing. The tilt is their version of leaning in. And this is where the behavior starts to look completely different. Because it's not just about vision. It's not just about processing words. It's about connection. When your dog tilts their head while you're talking, they're signaling engagement. They're telling you, in the clearest way they know how, that they're trying to understand what you need from them. They're showing you they care what you're communicating. And that matters for one reason. It reveals just how much emotional energy your dog is investing in reading you. Most animals don't do this. Cats don't tilt their heads when you talk to them. Horses don't. Even wolves, the ancestors of domestic dogs, rarely show this behavior in the same consistent way. But dogs do, because they've learned over generations of living with us that understanding humans is survival. It's bonding. It's the foundation of the relationship. So when you see that tilt, what you're actually seeing is your dog trying to meet you halfway. You're giving them language they weren't born to fully understand, and they're doing everything in their power to decode it. The tilt is the visible proof of that effort. Now, there's a distinction here that really matters. Not every head tilt means the same thing, and this is the part most owners never see. A dog who tilts their head occasionally during conversation, with soft eyes and a relaxed body, is showing healthy engagement. That's the behavior we've been talking about. The processing, the connection, the focus. But a dog who tilts their head obsessively, or combines it with stiff posture, flattened ears, or anxious pacing, might be signaling something else entirely. Confusion, yes, but also stress. If a dog is constantly trying to understand commands they can't decode, or if they're in an environment where they're being over-talked to without clarity, the head tilt can become a signal of overwhelm. It's the same tilt, but the context is different. And that distinction is important because it reminds us that clarity matters. Your dog wants to understand you, but they need you to help them do it. If you're giving mixed signals, talking in long, complicated sentences, or using the same tone for everything, the tilt becomes less about engagement and more about desperation. So the healthiest version of this behavior happens when you're clear. Short phrases, consistent tone, genuine emotion. That's when the tilt becomes what it's meant to be, a moment of mutual effort. You're trying to communicate, they're trying to understand, and the tilt is the bridge between you. There's one more thing worth understanding. The head tilt also happens more often in younger dogs and in dogs who are particularly bonded to their owners. Puppies tilt constantly because they're still learning. They're cataloging every sound, every expression, every cue. The tilt is part of their education. But adult dogs who tilt frequently tend to be the ones who are most emotionally attuned to their person. They're the dogs who follow you from room to room, the ones who seem to sense your mood before you've even fully felt it yourself, the ones who rest their head on your leg when you're upset or bring you a toy when you're happy. Those dogs tilt more because they're listening more, not just to your words, to everything. They're the ones who've learned that paying attention to you brings connection, and connection, for a dog, is everything. So when you see that tilt in your own dog, you're not just seeing a reflex, you're seeing evidence of a relationship. Evidence that your dog is emotionally invested in understanding you. That they've learned your voice carries meaning worth working for. That the bond between you is strong enough that they want to meet you in your language, even though it isn't theirs. That's what the tilt really is. It's effort, it's focus, it's love in the form of attention. And once you understand that, you can't unsee it. The next time you're standing in your kitchen, or sitting on the couch, or getting ready to leave the house, and you say something to your dog, watch for it. That slight shift in their posture, that slow, deliberate tilt, those eyes locked on yours. And now you'll know. They're not just hearing you, they're reading you, studying you, trying to understand not just what you said, but what you meant, what you feel, what you need. They're doing what they've been bred to do for thousands of years. They're trying to be close to you in every way they know how, even if that means tilting their head just to see your face a little more clearly. Because for a dog, understanding you isn't optional. It's the whole point. Does your dog tilt their head more when you use a certain tone, or does it happen randomly, no matter how you're speaking? And if you've ever wondered why your dog stares at you without blinking, especially right before bed, the answer is something most owners completely misunderstand.